Israel informed the 15 members of the United Nations Security Council last week, as well as several other prominent European Union countries, that if the Palestinian Authority persists in its efforts to gain recognition in September as a state within the 1967 borders, Israel would respond with a series of unilateral steps of its own. Senior foreign minister officials said the ministry's Director General, Raphael Barak, sent a classified cable last week to more than 30 Israeli embassies, directing them to lodge a diplomatic protest at the highest possible level in response to the Palestinian efforts to gain international recognition for statehood at the UN General Assembly session in September. The Israeli diplomatic corps conveyed the message that support for international recognition, particularly by most of the members of the European Union, encouraged the Palestinians to forego negotiations with Israel and to move more quickly toward recognition at the UN of Palestinian statehood. Israeli diplomats stressed that such a move violates the Oslo Accords and will not lead to a Palestinian state even if the General Assembly grants recognition, but could lead to violence on the ground. European diplomats have confirmed to Haaretz that such a message was conveyed several months ago. One diplomat said his country did not receive a serious response when asked what unilateral steps Israel might take. Another diplomat from a European country said in light of the current deadlock in negotiations, international recognition of a Palestinian state appeared unavoidable in September. Foreign ministry sources said no decision has been taken at this stage over a possible Israeli response to UN recognition of Palestinian statehood, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has not held any major discussion of such a recognition on a formal level among his cabinet colleagues. Ideas have been floated on the right wing of the political spectrum in several weeks, suggesting, for example, that Israel might apply Israeli law to the West Bank or annex major settlement blocks to Israel. September is expected to be pivotal for several reasons. Last September, U.S. President Barack Obama told the General Assembly that he wished to see a Palestinian state become a member of the UN within a year. In addition, Israel and the Palestinians had agreed that the talks they undertook last September in Washington would last for about a year. Thirdly, Palestinian Minister Salam Fayyad's program of establishing institutions for a future Palestinian state is due to be wrapped up this coming September. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas met Sunday in Ramallah with former Knesset member Yossi Beilin and told him that the Palestinian Authority would not engage in further negotiations with Israel after September. Senior Palestinian sources added, however, that if negotiations are resumed before September and make progress, the Palestinians would be prepared to defer efforts to gain UN recognition of statehood. Abbas told Beilin that it would be possible to engage in 3 months of talks in an effort to achieve progress before September, but Netanyahu would have to suspend construction in the West Bank settlements before that period. The PA leader added that the Palestinians would not renew violence against Israel, but hinted in his possible resignation or the breakup of the PA, telling Beilin that there is no October 2011 on his schedule. Israel is considering annexing major West Bank settlement blocks if the Palestinians unilaterally seek world recognition of the state, an Israeli official said Tuesday, a move that would deal a grave blow to any prospects for peacemaking with the Palestinians. Israel has refrained from taking such a diplomatically explosive step for 4 decades. The fact that it is considering doing so reflects how seriously it is concerned by the Palestinian campaign to win international recognition of a state in the absence of peacemaking. Although it is widely assumed that under any peace deal Israel would hold on to major settlements it has built in the past 44 years, any decision to formally annex West Bank territory would be a precedent-setting move that could increase Israel's already considerable international isolation. The Palestinians claim all of the West Bank and East Jerusalem, in addition to the Gaza Strip, for a future state. Israel is making a lot of threats they cannot make good on. They may say that international recognition of a Palestinian state is meaningless unless they agree to it, but the truth is it's inevitable and they know it. Both the UN and EU will recognize a Palestinian state by this September, and I fully expect the US to give in to the wishes of the international community and back this campaign as well, if it does go this far. Personally, I have a feeling Israel is not going to put the fate of their nation in the hands of the international community. I look for Israel to suspend all construction in disputed areas and go back to the negotiations table. It will be both interesting and shocking if talks are resumed under the authority of the UN led by the European Union. The Bible says in Daniel 9, verses 26 and 27, in the last days, the coming Antichrist would confirm a peace accord with Israel and many nations. This future Antichrist will come out of the nations of the old Roman Empire. This last days empire is believed by many Bible-believing prophecy experts to be the present-day European Union. In other news, Syrian President Assad is struggling to maintain power. However, you may be surprised that Israeli officials may not be that anxious to see his possible departure. Syria has fought 3 wars with Israel and maintains close ties to its fiercest enemies in the region, including Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah militant groups. So it may come as a surprise that many in Israel view the current unrest convulsing Syria with a wary eye, fearful that a collapse of Assad's regime might imperil decades of quiet along the shared border. Israeli leaders who voice fears, unfounded so far, that the early uprising in Egypt might spell the end of the 2 countries' peace agreement, are keeping quiet about the tumult that has spread to Syria. Several officials said that while Israel is closely following the situation in Syria, where mass protests are posing the greatest threat to the Assad's families for decades in power, there is no consensus on how to react or even what the best case scenario for Israel is. Some Israelis, including hardline members of parliament, are breathing a sigh of relief that Israel didn't make peace with a regime that might be headed for extinction. But others say the country may have squandered an opportunity by not engaging Assad. Like most of the Islamic leaders in the Middle East, they all hate Israel. But like Syria's Assad, outside of a few conflicts, were at relative calm with their enemy. This was a calm, although at times tense, they could count on. But that day could be coming to an end very soon. As the unrest continues to sweep through the Middle East, the Bible says it will eventually ignite into war against Israel. Many believe the next prophesied Middle East war will be the Psalm 83 war, where Israel is attacked by all of its surrounding neighbors. Frankly, my guess is that peace will come to the region before war, but I certainly would not rule out a major conflict on the very near horizon. Just recently, Syrian protesters were calling the Assad family cowards because they would not wage war against Israel and retake the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights was captured by Israel during the Six-Day War in 1967. This type of rhetoric does not bode well for Israel if Assad is ousted. This goes for all of Israel's neighbors. Israel is finding it difficult to determine what direction the region will be heading once this Middle East turmoil settles down. Here are some things you should be looking for in the coming months. Of course, the next major earthquake should always be on your mind. The Bible is clear that the birth pangs will continue to increase in frequency and intensity as we continue toward the second coming of Christ. Next, the European Union is looking for the U.S. to surrender the lead role in Middle East peace talks to them sometime this summer. And finally, Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas is giving Israel until September of this year to end all settlement construction or face unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state by the UN, the EU, and some 150 nations. This is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.